Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Adderall and my experience with it for ADHD. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I always mix up the order of that, ironically enough. I know that that would imply dyslexia, but um, so, without further ado, let's get the disclaimer out of the way. I am not a doctor and I am not a chemist, nor do I pretend to be either one of those things. I do not encourage the use of any substances, legal or illegal, and this video is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. Anything you have to do past this video has nothing to do with me. So, when it comes to Adderall, I was prescribed Adderall a few days, about a week ago. I've tried it a few times. I started out on a really low dosage because I had a really bad reaction to Concerta, which is methylphenidate extended release, which is, I believe, to my understanding, Ritalin, but like it's not the brand name. So Adderall is a different drug, like a different class of stimulant, so it's not the same thing as, say, a Ritalin is. A Ritalin is more of a dopaminergic. To my understanding, it's a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. So, and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. So it allows for stimulation in that regard, similar to a Sunosi, um, or another product that they oftentimes will use for uh, sleeping disorders. But Adderall is also used in that same category because it is also a stimulant. But I mean, in regards to working for sleeping disorders, but Adderall is a dopamine and serotonin releasing agent, meaning that it kind of goes in and forces the synapse to have dopamine be released, making it go from nerve to nerve that dopamine is actually released. I had a really bad reaction to methylphenidate. It was giving me panic attacks, the Concerta version. So that's the extended release version. As the weeks progressed and I got away from it, it got a lot better. And so the doctor wanted to try and do Adderall. This is all with the help of a psychiatrist, to be clear. I'm not doing any of this without doctor's permission, doctor's consent. And so the Adderall itself is, I don't really feel anything from it. It hasn't really, maybe it's just because it's simply so low of a dosage. I believe it's a combination of, I believe, 4 amphetamine salts. So the drug itself is amphetamine, and the salts are, I believe, just different. It just allows it to be metabolized differently and in different durations. So similar to how somebody might take a steroid or something like that that has undecanate, decanate in the mixture so it lasts longer in the system. I believe that is the idea. I could be wrong, however. But it is amphetamine salts. I do know that for sure. So I did 2.5 milligrams one day, and I have been doing 5 milligrams every day subsequently. To feel anything, I have to have like a bunch of coffee to make it feel like it's one, stimulatory, and two, helping me focus at all. Otherwise, with the Adderall, I mean, I just kind of feel tired on it. I know that's a relatively not normal, but sometimes that can happen with people who have a lot of ADHD. When they take something stimulatory, it gets them to a normal baseline, so then they feel basically tired or neutral. So that could be the situation for me. It also could just be that way in general, or more likely it's just that it's such a low dose that I'm not reacting to the drug yet. I would imagine that as the weeks continue, or when I meet up with a psychiatrist again in a few weeks, she'll want to increase the dosage and titrate up. We mainly stuck to this low dosage because I had such a bad reaction to methylphenidate to start. So when it comes to Adderall, the drug itself, as I explained, basically upregulates the cholinergic system, helps with firing in the brain, and that serotonin and dopamine release oftentimes makes people feel like they're actually working faster when they're not, in terms of people who don't have actual attention and focusing disorders. I used to not be considered to have any sort of focusing disorder. I used to just be a relatively normal kid, normal boy. And, as I got older, I got more in control of actually being able to focus. But it was after all of the brain trauma I had that I got more and more of the symptoms of ADHD. And there's a lot of literature now that's out and about that has been correlating brain trauma and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and attention deficit disorder and focusing issues with getting concussions. So when you get a lot of brain trauma, you can focus less over time because something structurally has changed. Maybe your brain adapted differently. Part of the reason we started out with Concerta, that drug specifically, is because there was some trials and some evidence that it worked really well for people who had brain trauma prior, and it helped, and they were exhibiting ADHD type symptoms. Concerta was proven to be very beneficial. What is unfortunate is that sometimes stimulants tend to activate the anxiety portion of persons with obsessive compulsive disorder, which I have. I have OCD, and it upregulated my OCD centers of my brain to an extent that I don't know if I've ever felt it in my life. And it was a different, it was a hard time to get through, but I got through it. And so now we're trying, when it comes to things that are psychological in nature, it's usually not one size fits all, and you have to keep trying and keep trying. I mean, even in most medicines, otherwise, like antibiotics, doxycycline doesn't even work for everybody simply because of medical history. Sometimes maybe they've taken doxycycline too many times, and so you need to use something, another form of medication. So that's just something to consider, is that just because I had a bad reaction doesn't mean you will have a bad reaction, nor does it mean you should take you should take this as a case study and not some sort of meta-analysis, because it is just one anecdotal report. I've also heard of Adderall being used beneficially for people who have had brain damage, to my understanding. I don't know if I've seen any literature on it. I have just heard that anecdotally. Hopefully it will help me out in the future. Obviously that's the goal, right? I have focusing issues and issues doing anything that I don't deem interesting. So anything that's not lifting or pharmacology, I tend to get a little distracted when I try to do it. But overall, that has been my experience. I haven't really noticed much. Hopefully it gets better as time goes on. I've had better results so far with things like DMAA. Even yohimbine has actually given me a better nootropic effect, and yohimbine isn't really for that purpose, if anybody knows what it is. Excuse me, I've mentioned it on this channel before. When I used ephedrine for asthma and had coffee with it, that gave me a better nootropic effect than this for my ADHD. Overall, I simply think it's just because I'm on such a low dosage, quite literally the lowest dosage they offer. So, and I'm a very large human being. So most likely we'll titrate up the dosage, and if I notice a lot of good results, I'll come back here and let you know. But overall, that's basically how Adderall works for persons with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and ADD as well, attention deficit disorder. Both of those are disorders that are not necessarily, as far as when you look at them in the literature, they're not something that's just supposed to be grown out of. So if you grew out of it, that implies that you were just a kid who was being a kid, and they diagnosed you with something because you wouldn't pay attention in class because you were being a boy, or even a girl, and you just weren't interested in class. And oftentimes that's what happens. Luckily, I didn't get diagnosed until now. I don't think I exhibited any signs of it when I was young anyways, but um, so when a lot of people stop using Adderall and stuff when they get into their 20s, oftentimes it's kind of ironic because it's kind of it should be in a way the other way around. More people should be like finding it in their later years where they're having focusing issues more and more as they try and get into a stable work environment and things aren't taken care of for them by their parents. And so then they realize that doing mundane tasks that they don't like are getting in the way of their life because life has a lot of mundane tasks, such as for a lot of people, doing chores. But overall, that is pretty much going to be it on this video. Just one more thing to note: never take Adderall without a prescription and consent from your doctor. Also, no drug interactions. For example, Zoloft and Adderall can interact. So you have to be careful when you combine a lot of medications. A lot of SSRIs and even depression medications can interact with Adderall because they both act on dopamine and serotonin, dopaminergic and serotonin pathways, meaning that you can get an upregulation in them, potentially causing serotonin syndrome, potentially causing the negative side effects of having too much dopamine, which to my understanding can be mainly hallucinations of the auditory and visual kind. But that is pretty much going to be it for this video. Just know that Adderall can also cause anxiety in a lot of people, and if that's the case, you may need an adjunct therapy, something as guanfacine, which can help to increase GABA levels, which will help you control the medication better. So without further ado, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry if I kind of rambled here and there. I know that it's been a long time since I took the Adderall, so to speak, and I know that my attention and focus levels can go every which way when I talk about these sort of things. So thank you for sticking with me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and until next time, have a great one.